And welcome back, Helldivers. Today is not Tuesday, but we did indeed get that patch release today. That Arrowhead has been cooking for the last month, almost month and a half. And this thing seems well done in some areas and undercooked in some others, and I'll cover why during this video. So starting out, looks like they did beef up all of the light penetration, and they want to kind of differentiate the light pen from the medium pen weapons, stating that the light penetration weapons generally deal a higher percentage of their total damage against durable enemies, differentiating them more clearly from the medium penetration options. So what that means is how the damage is dealt to enemies depends on, one, the armor value, and then two, is going to be how much durability does that body part or main health pool have. So overall, it is a generally increase in damage for the light penetration weapons. And I think one of the main notable ones on this list is going to be the Punisher Plasma, where they took the projectile damage off. From what I've heard, it was bugged and it wasn't really triggering anyways. So they moved all the damage straight to the explosion. I used it on Terminids earlier and it felt great. I didn't notice anything too different when I was using it, but it's going to be a very viable option over the Automatons for sure. And it looks like they also buffed the SMGs and pistols and kind of want to put them into their own category in terms of making a more close range damage, right? So they did increase their damage and also increase their fall off. So the further away the target is, less damage you will do to it. And that was true across almost all of the SMGs and pistols, except notably it did leave the Senator out of the entire list, but everything else did indeed get some kind of buff to it. Now, some of the throwables also got a boost. Mainly, I would say the Dynamite got the biggest boost, increasing its damage from 700 to 1,000. Its armor pen is now heavy. The biggest part of that, I feel, is going to be the demolition strength increase from 30 to 40, meaning the Dynamite can now close Titan holes, giving us one additional tool to be able to close those on the bug side. Stagger was also increased up to 40, but the use decreased from 4 to 3, so you can only have 3 with you at once, which I think should be plenty fine if you're taking an ammo pack or you have a resupply nearby. Typically, there's only one Titan hole inside of a mega nest or a heavy nest anyways. The Pineapple also got some tweaks to it, increasing the shrapnel from the main explosion and no shrapnel from the secondary explosions, it looks like. Also increasing its radius from 1 to 2.5 meters, and also increasing the damage from this shrapnel itself. So pretty good buffs around the Pineapple, yet I have not tested to see how that actually feels in game. The other notable throwable that had some significant changes to is going to be the Seeker. So now it has a higher priority for flying enemies, and also now a highest target priority for marked targets. I feel that is essential so that it's not flying off to go kill, say, a small warrior when you want it to go after the Brood Commander, Alpha Commander, or a Hive Guard. That is a fantastic change, also increasing the damage from 400 to 500. Absolutely brilliant. Now for the Stratagem changes, they did tweak the epoch a little bit, increasing the duration until the explosion increased from 3 to 3.25 seconds. You get an extra quarter second there, but they did also change the visual effects on it by 0.5 seconds. So now you can visually tell even better when the projectile is overcharged. And an additional benefit to the overcharged projectile is the demolition strength increased from 10 to 30, meaning it can now close bug holes. Not a very effective method to closing bug holes just due to the speed to charge it up and having to reload after 3 shots, but at least we have an additional option for that. It just increases the utility of that weapon. Like all the other light pens, the Stalwart did get a buff to its damage and durable damage, which is phenomenal. Flame 40 Flamethrower also got a boost from 130 to 150 in the canister capacity, let you hold down that trigger a little bit longer, and you'll also have some additional canisters. So you'll start with 3 instead of 2, and you can carry up to 5 canisters now instead of the 4 from before. The anti-material rifle also had its durable damage increased, and its starting mags and spares also increased, so that's a nice boost to that weapon. Autocannon was also buffed, surprisingly. Damage increased from 260 to 325. That is great news for those autocannon users out there. I would say the main change that I really enjoyed out of this whole stratagem change list was going to be the solo silo. The health was increased on it from 800 to 1500. But that shouldn't matter too much now since the enemies will not attack it. And I did test this out in some blitz missions, throwing it right in the middle of a pack of enemies. And they just ignored it. They just walked right around and left it alone. The orbital rail cannon strike did get a decrease in its cooldown, but not by much. They dropped it by 30 seconds. It feels better, but I still feel like it needs a little bit additional buff. Maybe 150-second cooldown without any ship module upgrades would probably be the sweet spot. When I was running with it, it was about 2.5 minutes between uses. I would still prefer to take eats over the orbital rail cannon strike at this point. And the Patriot exosuit got some buffs, increasing or really fixing its armor penetration in worse angles by 1. So instead of 6640 up to 6650, so more of a steeper angle, it will still get that tank penetration level. But the big change to that was the gun ammo capacity increased from 1,000 to 1,350. So an extra 350 rounds. I feel like that brings it pretty close on par to the other exosuit, but I still don't see too many people taking the Patriot. Now for the enemy balance, this feels like it was all buffs on our side, nerfs to the enemies is what it really feels like. So start with the Illuminates. The Flesh Mob had some significant changes to it. So the faces now deal extra damage to its main health. So those are basically weak spots now. But its main health was also decreased by 1,000, making it less of an ammo sponge. And it is also slightly less vulnerable to fire damage to kind of balance that health decrease level is what they said. Have not tested out any Illuminate stuff quite yet since we are on this Terminid major order, and that's all I was dropping in this morning. Elevated Overseers, the bane of so many people's existence. Those things just fly around like little gnats, and they're a pain to get rid of. They did have their main health decrease from 600 to 450. It just seems so many times like they were taking so much more ammo than was necessary to take them out. But one thing I didn't see was them changing anything with their jetpack. I feel like that should be almost an unarmored weak point with maybe 250 health. Something that if you can get behind them and take out the jetpack, they should be either taken out or they become a ground overseer, still keeping their weapon as they have it. But they did make them slightly easier to catch on fire. But overall, their durability or their health pools were decreased, right? And their head armor was also decreased. So should be a little bit easier to take them out of the sky now. Now, the Leviathans had a major change to them. Instead of their annoying blast that they shoot from across the map, and you do have that spotlight that kind of tells you generally where they're going to be shooting, but they'd still snipe you. Now they have beams just like the Harvesters, still slower moving, so you can at least move out of their way. And also, Leviathans will not show up outside of the mega cities, so you will only see them inside mega cities, which will make it much easier again to kind of break the line of sight with them, prevent their laser beams from tracking you down and taking you out. Now, since we are currently on the major order, the Terminids had some major changes to them. Rupture Strain is not on any of the planets we can land on right this moment, but with slightly less than 48 hours left on the major order, I would expect them to show up on a defense mission. I'm just hoping it's not Hellmire yet again. But we do have that active defense on Garkrux right now, but Rupture Strain not there. Spore Burst is present, though. So for the Rupture Strain, they did update the textures for the Rupture Strain enemies for better readability. Haven't seen them to exactly see what that looks like or what those differences appear to be. But the Rupture Warrior had some significant changes. Their movement speed underground was decreased, which I felt like that was a pain because once they went underground, it was hard to track down where they were headed, and using explosive weapons to blow them out of the ground or gas or any other effects on them. They do need to surface more often when moving underground. Again, haven't really been able to play against them, so I can't see what that actually looks like in terms of how long can they stay under those ground. But they did slow down their attack once they do come out of the ground, so it's easier to dive away from them. And their front leg armor was decreased from 3 to 2. I suspect that their head armor is still kind of like the hide guards, still need that medium pen to hit their head armor, which is going to be the bulk of what you're going to be shooting at whenever they do pop out. And they will emerge before attacking turrets instead of destroying them from below ground. So a significant boost, a significant change there if you do run sentries against the Terminids. The Rupture Spewers also had their timing tuned as to how fast they will start to attack you once they do pop out. And the Bile Spewer variations increase the size of their mouth weak spot, so it should be easier to hit them in the head to take them out. I absolutely hate the armored ones and trying to pop them if I'm not running a grenade launcher, say with a Stalwart. It's kind of hard to even hit their bubble butt. But now the mouth weak spot being a little bit bigger might make it a little bit easier to take those out. Brood Commanders are slightly harder to set on fire now, same with the Warriors. And they did have a slight durable increase in the head and body, but running a Stalwart with the tweaks to the Stalwart, I felt like the Warriors, with running Light Pen, there was no change to how they were functioning and how I was taking them out. A lot of people will prefer this one, but the Dragon Roach spawn rate has been decreased on all the difficulties they show up on. So they're going to spawn at half the rate on 5 and 6, about 40% lower, 7, 8, 9, and 33% on difficulty 10. And the significant change to how we kill them is the wings will result in fatal damage to the Dragon Roach, but their wings now have their own health pool. So either focus on the body or focus on the wings. It's obviously much easier to hit the wings just based on the size of them. And they've also increased how much damage the wings take from explosions. I mean, it was already generally easy, I felt, to take them out with an ultimatum if you were close enough. So I feel like the Dragon Roaches will be a little bit easier to take out now with Eats or Recoilless, something like that. But if you're going to use those, make sure you're focusing on either the main body or the wings. Right, and they did put a little note in here about the improved performance during Hive Lord encounters, but it seems like there's no tweaks to them right now. Now, moving over to the Automatons, it looks like they changed how they call in for when you're coming up on a base. The Automaton troopers will require better visual confirmation before calling in reinforcements. It was annoying when you just be running outside the base, try to find the entrance to get in if you weren't running a warp pack, and they would just automatically pop their flare, and here comes 2 Factory Striders or a bunch of War Striders dropping in on you. Now, the Devastators are slightly harder to put on fire, and their larger body parts slightly more durable. This kind of counteract a little bit of that Light Pen beef up. I haven't played against the Automatons yet to kind of see how that feels for running Light Pen, but they did change the ragdolling from both the command bunker turrets and the War Striders, which is phenomenal. But I would also caveat that there were so many times where the ragdoll would save me from a group of berserkers or shield devastators that would blow me behind cover for some others. So there was pros and cons to that ragdolling, especially since I tend to run a lot of light armor. I would get ragdolled frequently, but most of the time I felt like it was saving me from danger. And there were the times where it would obviously slide me into a contact mine and blow me up regardless. Now, the Factory Striders are slightly less vulnerable to fire. It'll be interesting to see that change. I suspect that was probably from the people running the CRISPR getting up underneath and just absolutely cooking the Factory Strider from the inside out. Now, the War Striders had probably the most changes to them on the Automaton front. They're going to shoot 2 fewer grenades per salvo. That, I feel, is a very minor tweak. It depends if it's going to come off of which side or maybe in the middle, or where those 2 fewer grenades are actually coming from that are going to be subtracted from it. Is it going to be a smaller area they're going to be targeting? Are the grenades just spread out over the same amount of area, so less explosions? I haven't played to really test it out. If you have, just leave a comment down below as to what you have seen fighting against those War Striders. Now, they did add some weak spots to aim for. It does not say what armor penetration value those weak spots have. Probably medium or lower if it's going to be anything like the other enemies with weak spots on the Automaton front. But it's going to be the aim for the eyes or the vents on the back. That was extremely annoying when they did launch the War Striders. You see the vents, you automatically think that's a weak spot, I'm going to shoot that, and you get nothing out of your medium pen primary. So hopefully it is medium pen, and that is how that will function for us. So if you can get behind it, it'll make it much easier to take those out. And to counteract some of the durable changes, they did make the Scout Strider's armor top shield a little bit more durable. Now, there is this whole slew of fixes. I'm not going to go over all of those. A bunch of rare crashes and things like that. This patch size ended up being almost 10 gigabytes total. And the total file size is now 134 gigabytes on my computer. I want to say before this patch, it was sitting at about 140-ish, a little over 140. So they did indeed shrink the overall size of the game, even with this 10 gigabyte patch. So that's phenomenal. It looks like they're making progress on that front. But with a 10 gigabyte patch size, there has to be something else that they're not telling us, because all these things to me would be small changes to the code that's already there. It might increase in some areas, decrease in some others in terms of size for when the game is compiled. So I was very interested. Anytime that they've had that, there's been some shadow drops of stuff, and indeed I did find some. So I took a break from the MO, but still on the Terminid front, did find out that there are now mega nests in the mega cities. And this is the part that I feel is undercooked. So I dropped in a couple, and it seemed like all the layouts were the same one. It's the spire load, or the spire layout for the mega nest, with the big spire in the middle, a circle of nests basically facing that spire around the inside with a couple on the center. So I started working through the holes on there, and I realized I'm missing one hole. Where could it be? The mega nest is also sandwiched right in between a heavy nest and the mission objective. And I noticed the terrain was slightly different, and indeed the two nests were actually merged in between. One of the heavy nest holes and one of the mega nest holes were in the same little pocket that there was no way to get back out of. That's very unfortunate. That's why I feel like they didn't really test this portion of it. It is a welcome change to have the mega nest on the mega cities. Just adds that extra variable, makes it a little bit more difficult, because I felt like the mega city missions were a little bit too easy, even for a D10, which all the level 150s will tell you they have it figured out. It's not as difficult. It's just knowing when to use what weapons and how to move through the enemies. So this was a welcome change, but they still need some tweaks. It's obviously not fully fleshed out at this point. Of note, there are the mega bases over on the Automaton front as well. If you see some mega cities in there, you can head on over and check those out. I have not tested it. I did take a look over on the Illuminate side, and they're still lacking any kind of equivalent to a mega nest or a mega base. There is nothing on even the countryside maps. Unfortunately, Illuminates are still waiting for their next major update. There's probably some other stuff hidden in there with the two patches this morning, because I had mine split between 7.4 and 2.3. There's something else out there, something we're missing, or something that's coming that we don't know about yet. They probably wanted to put it in there, I suspect, to test any kind of balance issues, glitches, whatever else might be happening inside of the game, making sure this code that they tweaked also doesn't impact whatever changes they were planning on making in the future. So overall, I would say the feel of the game is a little bit better. It doesn't feel like this is power creep too much right now, but I think it opens up the viability of more of the primary weapons, especially on the Automaton front, is really where we're going to feel this. But any change is a welcome change. It's nice to see them taking a look at this and tweaking it. I am excited to get back onto the Rupture strain. I'm excited to see what this next major order is going to be. Probably launching on Monday. I don't suspect they will launch one this weekend or after the termination of this major order, because it does expire on Saturday, with Liberty Day being on Sunday. At least last year they didn't have a designated major order on that day. But with this 10 gigabyte patch, they gave us the Constitution and some free armor last year. Maybe we'll be getting some more free stuff this year. We'll have to see come Saturday or Sunday. But that's all I have for today. If you like this content, please hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you on the Warfront, Helldivers.